This is another padded detached buttonhole, but it's stitched in a little bit different way, so I wanted to do an additional demonstration. Like before, you're going to bring the needle out under one of your foundational stitches, and I stitched these by stitching over 2 canvas threads every other one all the way around, and then went back and filled in the gaps. So now I'm going to come under the stitch and bring my needle over the thread just like I did before, all the way across. You can make the stitches as tight or as loose as you want. The thread in the project is a nice bulky thread, so even though it looks really loose with the pearl cotton, I think you'll find that when you're stitching it in the project that it looks a lot tighter. Okay, I'm not entering the canvas, I'm just coming under the stitch. Okay, now instead of working around in a circle, what I'm doing is I'm going to work in rows, in horizontal rows. And I've caught, okay, let me make sure that my needle is going to come over this thread. Sometimes I have to really think about manipulating my needle in one direction as opposed to another. There we go. And you may find that you find it easier to go one direction than the other direction, and that's fine. But you're just going to continue making your loops. All the way across. And so that will give this detached buttonhole a little bit different look than the first one that we did. I'm going to work into the side here because I want to make sure that it's well attached on the sides. And now I'm going to come back the other way. You can see that this makes it's called detached buttonhole for a reason. It's not really attached to the canvas. But that allows it to have some stretch and some give and a more dimensional look. You may want to keep this in mind if you're doing a painted canvas that has, oh, I don't know, curtains on it or a lace trim on a dress or something like that. You may find this to be an interesting and useful stitch. Okay. Oh, I think I've got a knot there, which I do not want, so I'm going to back this out and try again. Go. When you want to increase the number of stitches, you just work 2 into the same thread, the same previous loop. If you want to decrease, you skip 1. So I think this is going to work better if I do it like this. For some reason, moving from the left to the right doesn't give me any issues. Moving from the right to the left, I have to really stop and think about it quite a bit. Now, because of the nature of this one, you're kind of making an envelope to hold the stuffing. You can stitch a few more rows before you need to start doing the padding. So I'm going to stitch one more row, and then we'll do some stuffing. You don't want to wait until the very end to do the stuffing. I find it better to do a little bit of stuffing and then stitch some more rows, because you want to make sure that you have enough fiberfill to make a nice raised area, and you may need to stitch more rows in order to accomplish that. You don't want to discover that you don't have enough room to do the stuffing that you want to do. Okay, so now I'm attached on the sides here. Let's stitch one more row. I think will be good before we start doing the stuffing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the loop here on this side, but now I'll be ready to cover this up. Okay, now this one, I'm kind of twisting this fiberfill a little bit to make an elongated shape. I'm going to stuff it down in here. It looks like that might be enough. I'm going to stuff it all the way down to the bottom. There we go. I may need to come back and do a little bit more, but I'm going to go ahead and do another couple of rows to see if we're how well we're covering. Always want to make sure that you keep your needle coming over the loops that you're forming. If you don't like working with the fiberfill, which, you know, everybody likes different things, and that's fine, but you still want it to look padded, you have plenty of felt that you can cut a felt pad and stitch over the felt pad. That will still give you a padded appearance without having to mess with this fiddly fiberfill. Yeah, I think that one little bit was going to be enough to give me a nice padded appearance. I may need to stitch another row though. I'll show you how I check that in just a second. Okay, now I'm going to kind of lay this over to see, could I stitch into my foundation stitches right here and cover everything up? And it looks like I'll be able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and take one more stitch over here, one more stitch into the side. Oop. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over the foundation stitches from this direction. Now let's approach it from this direction. I'm going to go under the loop like I've been doing, but I'm going to catch this foundation stitch and go under it. That should help us to close up our envelope, because now we'll be attaching the loops to the foundation on this side. There we go. That's working well. Make sure you get your fiberfill completely enclosed. You don't want to have a free end as you're working this. Because that would give you a little place for your fiberfill to escape. And we want it to all remain enclosed. Make sure my needle is coming over. Yep, good. I'm trying to keep my head out of the shot, but I really want to get it right over to where I can see what I'm doing. Looks like just a little bit more and I'll have this all enclosed. There we go. So now this little cabochon is all enclosed. It's nicely padded, and I'm going to end just by putting the canvas down through the needle down through the canvas. So that's a different way to do a detached buttonhole.